more on Chinese stars joining the WNBA. I'm joined now by Mike Bako. He's a sports editor at dailynational.com. Always great to see you, Mike.
Good to see you, Elaine.
Well, let's talk about these three Chinese players in the WNBA this season. We know that the men's side is well established. How have you seen the women's side evolve?
Well, that's really the key word that you just used there, evolving. So over the past 2 decades or so, there have been about 6 Chinese-born players who have come over and played in the WNBA. They have not had that true breakout star the same way that the NBA's had with Yao Ming. And that's really going to be the true differentiator, is when will one of those stars truly break through? Obviously in LA, they've got a great floor general there, Yang Li. Here in New York, we have Hanzhou, who's 6'10", so in that Yao Ming mode. But there really hasn't been someone who's completely burst onto the WNBA field, taken their team deep into the playoffs, a championship, all-star level player. But that's coming certainly with some of the developments that we've been seeing at the grassroots level in China.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. We know that the women's game has been growing here in the United States over the years. It's just getting bigger and bigger. How popular is it in China? And let's talk about that grassroots and the growth of bringing these younger women up into the professional ranks.
And it all starts at that grassroots level. We've had many conversations about winter sports and the Olympics. How did that get going? It's because they put the infrastructure in place. They had basketball academies. They built courts. They built gymnasiums. Those are the same things that the Athletic Commission in China has been able to do. And also, the NBA opened a basketball academy in 2018. So they had one about 2 decades ago for the men's and for the boys there, but opening this academy in 2018 really opened the floodgates for a younger generation of players to get proper training, to have coaches come over and be brought over there, not only to bring their U.S. expertise, but to teach those coaches there once they left, so that new generation of players can learn the proper way to play. And we're seeing the fruits of it ever so slowly, and we're seeing it on the international level in the Olympic Games. They finished 5th, not medaling at the Tokyo Games, but again, they have high hopes for 2024 in Paris.
So behind the scenes, we're seeing some scouting. We're seeing this international pipeline where there is some sort of evaluation process in bringing players to the United States.
Oh, certainly. They definitely are. And one of the areas where I think you'll probably see it on a lower level is at the NCAA level. Will some of these colleges bring over some of these players either as exchange students? There's certainly the academic implications that go along there. But if you could get them in the pipeline at the NCAA level, that's one extra layer of U.S. bit of coaching. That's one extra bit of layer of having eyeballs and scouts and team executives being able to see you. One of the shortcomings about bringing some of these players over is that it is quite a distance to scout these players. The WNBA right now is really, blooming in terms of attendance, TV ratings, stars on the national level. But still, there are some budgetary issues. So they don't quite have the infrastructure in place at the WNBA level that the NBA does in terms of sending multiple scouts over to China to scout for players. Like I said, there have been about a half a dozen players over the entire course of the WNBA. So it's fertile ground for them to find players. They just haven't been able to do it just yet.
And we're almost out of time, but really quickly, I got to ask you about something you just mentioned, the NCAA. Just a few months ago, we saw this huge audience watching the women's NCAA basketball championship. We can't forget LSU and Iowa. Talk about the growth there in terms of the audience, the attention, the eyeballs, and the interest. Is it the storylines? Is it the characters? What is drawing the bigger audience to women's sports right now?
Once again, you nailed it. It had all of the elements. You had the Iowa player who shoots from almost half court the same way that Steph Curry was doing. You had all the star players on the LSU team. They had a coach who was roaming the sidelines in great outfits. It really captured the attention of the American public. So they've got great storylines. And the other thing is they've got players that stay for an extended period of time, unlike on the men's side where generally a really good player is one and done. You can't build those storylines. That's what the women's game is doing right now. And that's really what the WNBA is trying to do with some of their players as well.
Just so much excitement. I'm excited all about it. Mike Bako, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.